Welcome to Deep Thought. Today I want to talk about the sexual id. And this is a follow-up to a presentation by Seba BGS Ibmore. And this was a video on his women's channel. It was called Esoteric 101, The Female Animus. And, in that video he talked about something, I've always known. I just use different terms. And, he broke down the history of it, and that's the animus and the anima. In every man, there's a tiny part that's a woman, and in every woman, there's a tiny part that's a man. And this is borne out if you, biologically, all men have a certain amount of female hormones, a tiny amount, and biologically women have a tiny amount of male hormones. And the the link is in the description box. Definitely check it out. Now, just real quick, I wanted to touch on this because relationships are very esoteric. They're very deep. And it's almost something, if I really want to go deep in relationships, I would just talk about the metaphysical part. In fact, I remember a priest, an African traditional priest, actually said, in those traditions, and anyone who listens, who practices those traditions can tell you, relationships are seen as vehicles of spiritual growth. So it's a very deep thing. Now, I just wanted to talk about the id. Now, this is my perspective on it. This is from what I've learned, but it's also something I've used in coaching with with clients who could deal with the information. Everybody can't deal with it. But here's the understanding of the id that I got. And it was more from an indigenous point of view. It was first, on this I stand on the shoulders of a gentleman I've mentioned several times on here, Master Yao Yamache Morris. Now, he was involved in, I've mentioned his book before on my other channel, Amumara. But that was actually part of something called the Amumara Project, where he actually traveled all over the world and gained wisdom, knowledge, information from shaman, from medicine people, from priests. And he was able to put everything together for this landmark project. Many things have come from it. Now, one of the things he talked about and gained from this project was that in indigenous cultures in particular, they had a different view of spirituality, birth, and everything. Now, in indigenous cultures, it was their knowledge. They wouldn't have faith. We're coming from shaman and everything. They wouldn't use the term faith. It was their knowledge that before birth, a spirit is both male and female in the spirit world. I'll just use that. I was going to use another term, but then that's going to be like not even going deeper, just going off the cliff and really just diving in. And I'm just like, nah, I got to work y'all up to it. Even though some people say, go ahead, Uncle Rom, go ahead and do it. Nah. But before birth, the spirit is both male and female in one. It's complete. But in order to be born on this side, on the material plane, the spirit has to either have a male or female body. Now, in the case of hermaphrodites, and that's some deep stuff I haven't really studied, and I haven't really looked into that phenomenon with this. But for the 99.9% of the population, they're going to be born into a male or female body. Now, when they are born into that body, ideally, as we can see, sometimes it's not always the case, but ideally, someone with masculine energy, an abundance of masculine energy, would be born into a female body. Into a male body. And I'm about to get deeper for a second. All right. because a male body can best express masculine energy. right? You know, because the masculine energy is more aggressive. It's built for war. It's built for protection. It's built to hunt. So the energy there actually supports that. The body actually supports that. The feminine energy, someone of spirit with a more feminine energy, is actually born, you know, into a body that supports more of that, like the ability to nurture, you know, because if you look at a woman when she's breastfeeding, she's nurturing. She's built to do that. She's built to be alluring to draw the man to her, so she'll have a softer body. You know, she's physically weaker. So that body, you know, the energy would have to be in a body which supports just being more still, not moving, being more sedentary, right? Now, of course, yeah, in this society, we got a whole lot of twisted stuff, but I would submit that a lot of it is because of chemicals in the food and everything, genetic modifications, negative energy, and when I say energy, like electricity, and because we still don't know the long-term effects of having all of this, you know, these cell phone carrier waves and all of that going through our body. We really, no one's really studied it. We would probably need a generation to see it, but there are a lot of factors that causes problems with this, and you know, and then getting into, like, sometimes when you have a male energy that's born into a female body, or a female energy, a stronger female energy born into a male body, that's more related to their life purpose. I'm gonna go a little deep for a second. Because sometimes, say you have someone in a past life, mostly male, but then they need to balance that energy out. They need to balance that energy out. So what'll happen is they might be born in a female body just to balance the energy out. Or you might have a spirit with more female energy born into a male body to make it more aggressive or something. And a lot of it also depends on the mission. Now, I threw that out there. I'll see how people respond to those statements. Now, the sexual id. Now, when that spirit is born into that, say that spirit is born into that male body, the female part has not gone away, but rather it's suppressed. It's suppressed within the male, and then the female is suppressed within, you know, her male energy is suppressed within her. Now, it's interesting in some cases. Sometimes, in most cases, that energy stays suppressed, but there are situations where a man might bring his own female energy up into his conscious state, or sometimes it could be forced. Like, you'll see this phenomenon with men. You might see it in a situation, prison. That's the best situation, because you actually have some predatory prisoners. They say they can bring the woman out in another guy. And sometimes it might. Also a situation where, for whatever reason, a man might be in a position where he has to be way more nurturing than he would normally have to be. Like and like a single father sometimes, depending on the situation. Depending if say a single father, the mother isn't available, she passed away or something, anything happened, and there's no other female energy around that could help him out. I mean, and that's a conversation in itself. Or a situation, you'll see it in situations sometimes with females, with they have no masculine energy around them. Some of them will begin to adopt more masculine energy. So those are situations can come up. But ideally, what the sexual id represents, the person that someone would be if they were born the opposite sex. And so what that does is what happens is a person will have a strong desire to connect to that person that's complementary to them, to that id. That's actually the basis of sexual attraction. Because what happens is, of course, a person cannot connect sexually to, they can't physically connect to their id. But what they do is subconsciously project the traits of that id onto the opposite sex. And they subconsciously look for that person who represents those traits. Now, I've spoke a lot about imprinting, and, you know, there's been some little hoo-ha about imprinting lately. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's ultimately the ultimate imprint, even more so than the father or, you know, opposite sex parent or whatnot. You come into the world, there's already a blueprint of the type of mate that will be ideal for you. And you will constantly project that onto the opposite sex. That's why some people can come in and have an automatic attraction for one person, but then they repulsed by the next person. And it might not be any logic to it or anything. But one of the things is, just because of several factors going on in the environment, whether it's the media, whether it's religion, whether it's the education system, parents, the subculture, whatever, many people, their image of their sexual id gets distorted. But if we lived in a culture that didn't interfere with a person's natural sexual drive, they would probably be able to meet their id as teenagers, because they will start off automatically projecting. They will automatically project what's going on. And a lot of times that kind of do connect to the parent, you know, the opposite sex parent thing, because a lot of times that it will have a genetic match. And that's a deep part. I gotta wait till I get into that, right? And when I say genetic match, well, people on my site know. I don't think about whether or not I want to even go that deep. Sometimes people ain't ready to hear things. But it will be a sense where the ideal match would naturally resemble the opposite sex parent, even if the imprint didn't exist. And so that's a deep thing. Or rather, not so much the opposite sex parent, but the opposite sex relatives and people in the family. Because it is a genetic thing. That's why sometimes people might be attracted to certain body parts and don't really realize why. But if they ask themselves, okay, why am I attracted to this particular type of body build or something like that, I would say, take a look at your opposite sex relatives. Yeah. So the sexual id, that's the basis. That's what we want to connect to. That's why because once we connect to that id, we have what people call a feeling of being in love. That's the closest we come to the feeling that we had in the spirit world before we came here. So that's why it's important. That's why some people they will search for that feeling of love, even men. But it's really just connecting to that person within them. It's like this Tantra master said. I've mentioned before, Shaitan Nidiyama. I saw a video and he was about to do a table demonstration of bringing a woman to orgasm, right? And he said to her, and he did this in front of people, right? And he said, yeah, I'm looking for her inside of me. Then when I find her, I can start making love. And see, I immediately caught the meaning. He's looking for the part of her that represents his id that's inside of him. And see, understanding the id, understanding that every man has a female inside of him that he wants to reunite with, and then the woman understanding there's a man inside of her that she wants to reunite with, that actually cuts a lot. That actually gives you another understanding of why you choose the mates you do. It actually gives you it actually cuts to the chase with a lot of people. If people start actually embracing that knowledge, they would actually avoid a lot of trouble with the opposite sex. They wouldn't have to waste time. Because one of the things with that is, see, it's not just a thing of connecting sexually and getting that feeling of being in heaven, but it's also typically for a person to reach their fullest potential, to complete their, the incarnation objective, the reason that they're here on earth. They need those traits. That's why a lot of people, they either need those traits or they need to constantly encounter members of the opposite sex who will help them, who have those traits. It don't even have to always be a romantic thing. It needs to be something where that person is bringing something. For example, for a lot of the stuff I'm doing, there were women who were the ones who suggested to me, women I wasn't having sex with, but was able to connect with emotionally, because for me to do something, they were able to like give me the ideas. You know, like on my subscription site, it was a very beautiful woman, and I could name drop her. I don't feel like it, but people know her name. She was the one to say, "Hey, Rom, yeah, check out Connect Pal." You know, and then another beautiful woman would say, "Oh yeah, check out this online university thing." But then that's the type of person, what they represented of who I would have been if I was born a female. So they were able to bring something to me. You know, because the thing with the id is a lot of times some people hear this and they get understanding, so they think there's a soulmate, a single soulmate. They'll think, oh yeah, I got this one person, and they'll really waste a lot of time searching for it. There's no single soulmate. The average person got about 30 people who can fit that id. Remember, that id ain't perfect, or it's not going to be this perfect fit and everything, but it's going to be somebody who resembles it. So people really, and I'm saying 30, shoot, it could be 3 billion. It could be 30,000. It could be whatever. Whatever the case, there's somebody out there that matches you. And it's not a romantic thing. That's the problem. People think it's a romantic thing. No, it's a thing where they bring in something to you. They bring in a perspective to you. And I gave the example just from a male point of view. There's a lot of women who not reaching their potential because they not interacting with the men who can bring them something. A lot of women, like you have a lot of women who limit even their friend zone to the select guys. But sometimes a guy who can really help them is somebody they would consider non-select. But since they don't have a sexual attraction to them, they don't want to deal with them. But dealing with that person can help them out. See, that's the key. And then when you start getting even deeper into it, once you meet, say you meet that person that really resembles your id, right? All of a sudden, since you don't have to suppress it, you actually keep growing. You can let them be who you would have been if you were born the opposite sex, and then you can actually, as a man, grow into your full manhood. A woman grow into her full womanhood. I want y'all to think about that. And I'll just say, just check out Seba BGS's video, and just think about, just understand that, as far as the id, that person that you really want is the person you would be if you were born opposite sex. You just keep that in mind. And if you understand that, and then the key to understanding the id is understanding yourself. And remember, when I say that person's compliment, it ain't in like the same type of person you are in drag, or wearing a business suit. And that's how some people, even if they hear this, they get it confused. It's the person that compliments whatever you have. So if you're a paternal man, your id will probably be a maternal woman. Or if you're a charismatic man, your id will probably be an alluring woman. And it's like that. And shoot. Yeah, this is one of those things I could keep going with, because then I can get into some concepts I introduced on the other channels, such as the House of the Man and the House of the Woman. So, but I'm going to end this, because I'm going to try to, something I'm noticing about podcasts on this channel. They're pretty long. I'm like purposely trying to keep stuff to 20, because if I start flowing, man. Anyway, keep in mind what I'm saying. Chop it up in the comments. Throw any questions in the comments, okay? This should be an interesting one. Anyway, keep rising and transforming. Peace.